But some of the things we must call it a spade with a spade.
I'm supposed to feel sorry for that bitch. I don't.
She said, what? She said, yeah.
Now all of a sudden, I heard a big boom.
I dropped my hot pocket.
And I flashed him and
I sound like a I said, what in the world is that? So I was finna get out. He said, no, you ain't. He said, I said, what is that out? He said, that's a tornado. So he let the windows up and held me down in the seat. And I was hollering, Jesus, Jesus, Jesus. It was down and it went up and went right over my bed. Thank you, Lord. But that's what happened. It come right over my head.
Welcome at the first episode of Looking at the Facts, where we will be looking at the facts without covering anything up or being politically correct. Before we start with today's video, I need to put out a disclaimer first. This video will probably be marked and reported as racial content. Please note it's not. It's purely looking at the facts. So, without any further ado, let's dig into this one. For those of you who's been following my channel, will know that I've put up content from the PCPA. I've covered their story since lockdown started in South Africa, which was on the 25th of March 2020, and have been following how they progress during this period. South Africa is still in lockdown, and these guys are still fighting with government, or not fighting, I would say, are still trying to get the attention of government for assistance. They finally were able to sit with the Parliamentary committee and explain their plight from a tourism side of how it's negatively impacting the tourism industry in South Africa. It was a very, very interesting conversation to listen to, and after the whole presentation was made, the MPs were given a chance to give comment or ask questions. Everybody seemed to understand what the situation was and were offering their assistance until, of course, the EFF decided that they will again push their agenda of a racial situation going on. This agenda they're pushing is actually funny, and it's very sad to see that as the President of South Africa, Cyril Ramaphosa, called for unity in South Africa so that we can all work together to get the country's economy back on track, that there are these individuals that's constantly trying to derail the whole situation. Let's have a look at what she had to say.
And it needs to be transformed. It can't be, Chair, that at this time, after 28 years or 27 years of democracy, we still experience a particular sector and a particular race in South Africa who are dominating one industry. It means this gap between the rich and the poor is still going to continue to be like this. As we see now, the petitioners are all of one race. And you begin to ask yourself, Chair, as to what is the department doing?
What are you doing? It infuriates me to listen to this. So, when this presentation started, the chairperson invited everybody that's going to get a chance to speak to show their faces and introduce themselves. Just let's quickly look at that.
Over to you, Megan, and welcome again.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much, Honourable Chair, for having us this morning.
Can we see you, please?
Yes,
You
my
need to
video
say
is
something,
on.
Chantal.
There we go.
My video is
Thank
on.
you.
Yeah,
Thank
right.
you, Chantal. Okay.
Good morning, Honourable Chair.
Oh, there's Steve. Thank you so much, Steve. It's good to have you here.
Good morning, Honourable Chair.
Good to see you, Fiona. You're welcome.
Thank you. Dave.
Now, it was clear for me that this group of people that we're presenting were not all just part of one race, as claimed by this MP. It kind of upsets me to think that somebody that's sitting so high in Parliament can make claims like that, where it is clear for everybody to see that it's not true. What upsets me more is the fact that these 4 people that we're presenting were chosen by their institutions or associations that they represent to actually go and do this representation. However, this MP decided for herself that they are white people that is presenting, and is the so-called rich people that is presenting, which is totally false. Furthermore, Stats South Africa recognizes 5 classes of race in South Africa, which are black, white, colored, Indian, and other. This Indian lady should be really upset that she is not being recognized. Or is there something this MP knows about that we as the rest of South Africa does not know about, that Indians are now also classified as white? It's insane. There should not be an issue with what color the skin is. This is not what this presentation was about. This was about creating jobs and trying to save a sector within the industry. This MP makes around 1.4 million rand a year. That equates to about $6,500 per month, close to 95,000 rand per month. I wonder, was she really watching this presentation from the start, or did she just jump in to come and push her agenda at the right moment, not actually listening to the whole presentation that she is getting paid for to do?
As to what is the department doing, the department that is relevant to tourism? Why is we still have to have this kind of a challenge in South Africa? It means that.
So let's go onto the tourism website and see what we can find of what the Department of Tourism is doing. Oh, look here, great. They have a tourism equity fund. That's awesome. So let's see what this fund is all about. The fund recognizes that the capital-intensive nature of the industry is preventing new and existing black-owned tourism enterprises from meaningfully participating and contributing towards this sector. The scoring criteria for applicants place significant weight on the majority black ownership, thus 51% and higher. So to answer her question, the Department of Tourism set aside 1.2 billion rand for this fund that they started with the beginning of COVID to assist people in the tourism industry to stay on their feet and stay open during this lockdown period. Now, if you're living outside of South Africa, you might not really understand the whole picture here. As we read there on the tourism site, your company needs to be 51% black ownership before you can apply. Most tourism operators within South Africa is small businesses, small family businesses that started up one person and has grown. There's very little corporate type of businesses. There are, but most of them are small businesses and family businesses. That includes white, black, Indian, colored, other, whatever. But as a white, Indian, colored, or other race, if you are an owner and fall within that race group, you cannot apply for this 1.2 billion rand fund that has been set aside. Only 51% black ownership companies can apply. So I don't understand, if this MP is so concerned about transformation, there is already a clear sign for you that there is transformation within the sector and the industry, because 51% black ownership companies has got a big advance above all others in trying to survive this lockdown period. But we can even take it further. So even prior to COVID, there was the same type of situation in the transport industry in South Africa, or the passenger transport, I should say, within South Africa. Most operators will have a tourist side and a school charter side where they transport school children as well. And the government put out routes for scholar transport for children to get to school and back at home. So these type of operations are government assisted. They get subsidies from government to operate these vehicles. Again, if you are Indian, colored, white, or other race group, you cannot apply for the scholar transport. So the guys that's left out there currently is mainly your tourist guys and people that's doing charter type of work that does not have route-based stuff. So your work, these guys' work only come in on a day-to-day basis. There's no projection coming ahead, what's coming, or stuff like that that they can rely on. So this lady is working on a false idea that the white operators, as she claims, the rich people, is earning all of this money, but that's not the truth. If you go and look at it like we did, you'll see that actually the black operators does have an advantage above the white, colored, Indian or other race groups out there.
This issue and these challenges of unemployment is still going to be with us forever if you are not going to confront some of these issues. As much as we are in Parliament of South Africa, but some of the things we must call it a spade with a spade, and it must not. We must not just pretend as if everything is fine.
Lastly, I bring to you the point that actually inspired me to finally create this video series. I've been wanting to do so for at least a year, but never did. The Honourable MP tries to sound smart and screws it up big time. She tries to say, and I quote, "Let's call a spade a spade." I expected more from a person in such a high position as herself. Well, at least for what she's getting paid. But using a racial slur should not be allowed in the Parliament of South Africa in 2021. I'll take this time to educate this Member of Parliament. The phrase calling a spade in Latin were loosely translated from the Greek phrase to call a fig by the renowned humanist and classic scholar Erasmus. This might have been an incorrect translation, but were more of a creative interpretation and deliberate choice of words. In the late 1920s, a spade began to evolve into a code for a black person, with reference to a slave working as a gardener handling a gardening tool. Also during this period, the spade in question began to refer to the spade found in playing cards. The word would change further in the years to come. Eventually the phrase black as an ace of spades also became widely used. In the 4th book edition, The Latin Language by H.L. Menchen's famous book about language, spade is listed as one of the derogatory names for a black person, along with Zulu and skunk and many other words YouTube would probably ban me if I quoted them. For someone who is a founding member of a political party, the EFF, that frequently call people out as racist, I would have expected the MP to have educated herself not to use such racial slurs during a Parliament Portfolio Committee meeting. She should have known better. I think the Honourable Mrs. Spies summed it up perfectly. Let's have
Be as it may, one understands that things must happen and there must be processes. The reality, Chairperson, is that there is no sort of clear, indication from officials as to what really happens on the ground, and that's why we have petitioners from various areas and various industries coming to us, because the actual impact of things on the ground and what they are experiencing is very different from what is decided at the top. Now,
Guys, thank you for watching. Please like and subscribe and click the bell to be notified when I post a new video. This has been Mr. De Beer, looking at the facts.